rediscover yourself?
Yeah, that year was a bad year, obviously. And it took a long time to get to get back. I think one of the things that really helped me was I used to like go to the oh my god, this is going to date me so much. The computer lab at school. Do schools even still have computer labs?
I, they
No
have
idea.
iPad labs now, probably.
Yeah, I was in what used to be called the computer lab, what's now like the VR Tesla Industries Technology Lab, and
Oh my goodness.
at yeah, right at a public school. No, and so I used to email with my aunt, and I used to email with him at lunches too. Like if I couldn't be physically with him, then I was like gonna message him. And it was like very addictive, obviously, and like we were emailing back and forth. But then I would also take the opportunity to email with this aunt of mine, and I think just like not having the pressure of her being in person to like judge me was helpful because she was there and was still reminding me of these things that I, liked doing and like talking about. Like we would play these word games together where we would just like try to find these really obscure words and like send emails back and forth to each other with these with these long obscure words in them.
That's cute.
Yeah, and it was like she, we had nicknames for each other. Like she calls me Little Owl, I call her Wise Owl. If I can't put myself into a really awkward angle, I can show you that I have like an owl tattoo on my leg now. Um,
Hey, that's awesome.
and that's like mine and hers. We've each got like tattoos together, and so
Sorry, Alex,
uh,
for the listeners that don't watch the video
oh
portion,
yeah,
Alex just lifted up her leg and showed us a tattoo of an owl on her ankle.
an awesome tattoo of an
An
owl on my
awesome tattoo of
ankle.
an owl.
I want that on the record.
Continue.
Thank you. Um, and so I think things like that helped during that process to sort of remind me of like, there are things outside of this person that you enjoy and that are worth pursuing. And they are incompatible with the amount of time that you're spending on making this person happy. And it just became so exhaustive. Like every day was a new thing that I had to add to my list. Like literal, I had like a notepad of like all the things that I was
Wow.
supposed to do or not supposed to do to like avoid setting him off and like making him angry. Um, I don't doubt, like, just thinking about it now and the pattern of his behavior, I don't doubt that things would have gotten physical if I'd stayed longer, to be honest. Like,
That's the thing, yeah.
um, there's definitely like a cycle there. But I think like having those interactions with people outside of him really helped to pull me back and think about what I was missing. And so rediscovering that I am a person outside of this. I have my own interests outside of this. My interests don't all coincide with his. Like, I don't love everything that we do or that we talk about. I don't always find it stimulating to be around this person. I find it more exhaustive than anything. And just sort of
Right.
noticing those red flags helped me to find the strength to break things off with him.
Wow. So take us through that moment.
Oh, I'm like, I really took the low road and I'm super proud of it.
Okay, what was that like?
I broke up with him on our 1 year anniversary, which coincided with his birthday.
Oh my goodness.
So,
I mean, if you're going to go out,
I was so
you're going to
mad.
go out big, I guess.
I was so mad. And I had like made up my mind. And I know you know this about me, but I'm a very stubborn person. And so, like, when I make up my mind, I'm like, this is it. And that's just the way it's going to be. And so I like put my foot down and he got very emotional, which was very unlike him.
Hmm.
And I basically told him, like, this is what it is. I'm not interested in this anymore. Like, don't call me, don't contact me. Like, obviously, he had my addresses. So there was like a fearful period after that where I was like, is he
My
gonna
goodness.
like come and try to fuck with me? I have no idea.
Right.
But he didn't. He didn't, thankfully. And
That's
so
good.
I just was able to break things off, and thankfully he like left me alone. But in that moment, I was like, I literally felt free. You feel like you've just been like, you have that Shawshank moment where you're like,
Yeah,
ah!
it almost feels like you've been in jail for like a year.
Yeah,
And then you're
yeah,
like getting out of,
basically.
you're like, oh my God, this is what it's like to be free.
Yeah, this is what it's like to not have to track my movements and tell people like when I'm gonna be places and like when I'm gonna have my phone with me and not, and like don't care who I talk
Wow.
to. I can do whatever I want. Like it's just really
And like that would bring on,
intense.
I mean, to put a little pin there, I that would put on a lot of anxiety on top of the anxiety you were already facing with your negativity about your parents. And then being in a
Yeah.
situation like that would have made you even more anxious because, like you said, you had to keep track of all these stupid things he made you do.
Yeah, and that's what it's like designed to do. I think it's to keep you on your toes and feeling anxious, because then when that person tells you that you have done a good job or that you like listened to something that they said well, then it sort of like relieves the anxiety, and it's sort of like a pacifier in that moment, because it's like they created the anxiety and then they're telling you that you don't need to feel anxious, and it's just
Yeah,
sort of this like
it's manipulation.
dark irony. Yeah, exactly.
But like in the worst way. I mean, I don't know if there's any good form of manipulation, but
Yeah,
but
it's
in an
not a healthy
extreme
relationship
manipulation,
mechanic,
yeah,
obviously.
no, definitely not. What was I gonna say? I was gonna add a point to that. Hmm. Oh, lost it.
It's all good.
I'll cut this out after. But
Yeah, you're right though. It is manipulation, right? Like
yes, the point I guess I was trying to get across is it's manipulation, and it's trauma.
Yeah.
Is what my point was going to be. Is it's just like this is another trauma that you have to live through.
Yeah, I'd
And
agree
that
with
would
that.
like, no matter how, I mean, you got out of it, thankfully, right? And you started to rediscover yourself and find out who you are again, and start doing the things that you were missing out on doing for that whole year. You were not doing them. I'm assuming, at least.
Yeah.
Um, but that still lives with you, though. That trauma still lives with you. Like, unless you, ah, maybe it always lives with you. I don't know. Maybe you just find a way to cope with it better.
I didn't talk to anyone about it for a really long time. Like there were a few people at the time that I knew that was happening, but I remember this one time my mom like brought it up in front of a relative or something, and I got so angry and I like shot her down, and I was like, don't ever talk about that. Like that's none of your business. And I just got really defensive about it. And I even still like I don't particularly relish talking about it. I think I'm mostly just embarrassed that it happened, or that like I let it happen, but that's obviously a whole other thing.
Do you feel shame?
Yeah, I
Wow,
do.
that's so messed up, dude.
I know it's like because it wasn't really my fault, but at the
I'm not
same
saying
time, I'm like I let it
it's a normal
happen,
response to
and
have, obviously. Like, I'm not
yeah,
saying it's how you deal with it, and however you deal with it is how you deal with it. Like, it's neither
no, it
right or
is messed up
wrong.
though. Like
But
because
I'm not
he
trying to
should
say
feel
this in,
ashamed, and I don't even know if he does. Like I shouldn't feel ashamed, but I do.
yes. Like he should definitely feel ashamed for
Yeah,
what he put you through and for what he did to you at that age. But like at your age, what you're going through already, plus what he was putting you through in the situation, like it's not really your fault. Like you didn't know any better.
yeah,
So like you can't blame yourself. But like the fact that you have to hold on to this shame, even until now, you said,
yeah.
that's not fair for anybody. Not fair for yourself. It's not fair to the people around you, like,
Yeah,
or
and
people that
like
you
just to
could talk
touch on
about.
that, it's like I wanted it at the time. Like I think some people would be like, "Oh, but like you were a consenting participant." But I was also 15 and I had no idea what I was signing up for. So like I don't really think
Yeah.
it's a fair
Is
comparison when
that
you're
real
talking about
consent?
like a 22-year-old and like a 14-year-old or whatever. Like I don't think it's really reasonable to think that I could
Yeah.
have
Did you
known
really
what.
know what you wanted at that point, though?
Not
Right.
in
That's
that context. Like I didn't.
no.
Come on. Like
Wow. Okay. So that it's a good segue into my next segment that I have, which is a bit lighter than we
oh,
got to the
okay.
dark stuff.
Okay.
It was sorry, one last dark thing
Yeah.
before we move on to the lighter side of stuff.
Okay.
Was there ever a moment, Alex, because you know my history with
Yeah.
depression and the situations that I've been through, so friend to friend here, was there ever a moment, and like you and I were pretty close during this time, and I remember it, you're jogging my memory as we go through this of this time period in your life,
Hmm.
and correct me if I'm wrong here, and I'm getting, because I had a lot of people go through a lot of certain different things in that time period, so if it's your story or not, I apologize, but was there ever a moment in time when you were either in the situation or coming out of the situation and dealing with the trauma afterwards of it, where the depression was obviously there, because like he stripped you of your identity as a person, and you already had the anxiety from your parents, and then you have more anxiety from him? Was there ever a moment where you questioned living?
Not in that moment. Um, Earlier in my life, I had like thought about it. I'd never made an attempt. I didn't make an attempt on my life at any point, but I had like considered, in the sort of like a more academic way, like what if I could just end this and just like stop everything now?
So the thought
Um,
came into your mind, though.
yeah, a thought came into my mind earlier when it was before my parents got divorced, but when we were sort of still like living in that household where there was like a lot of fighting going on. And I was thinking like, I had my thoughts sort of like vacillated. I was like, what if I ran away? Like, what if I just like jumped off a bridge or something? And then like, I always came back to this idea of like just how crushed everyone would be. I think I like, even at that time, I still felt like I was cared for, even if it was in like these very like perverse ways that didn't always translate to like having a positive like day to day. But I knew that like my parents loved me and they would be there for me, and that they would like destroy people if I did that. And like I felt that very personally. Like I don't know if it was like a side effect of like feeling guilty or anything just because of what else was happening, but that's always sort of been the stronghold in my mind that's sort of kept those thoughts at bay for me, is like just being very lucky and having a family that I know loves me and would be very devastated if something like that happened to me. So in that moment with him, I never considered that.
Okay, so that's I just wanted to touch upon it just to make sure if there was a moment like that, because it's tough to talk about these sort of things, and I want to
Yeah.
make it more accessible, if that makes sense,
No, I like,
or
I
more
appreciate that. I think
palatable.
people wouldn't have an opportunity to talk about that necessarily, because I think a lot of people tiptoe around that question and they're afraid to ask. But like, for like, if you hadn't, told me about your story, then I might not have known to ask those questions. And then I would never know that about you. And then we wouldn't have the same relationship that we do now.
Right. I come from the place of like, I don't really give a fuck. Like, my life is my life, and I know that it is, and I'm not I'm ashamed of the moments within themselves, but I'm not ashamed that it happened.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Like, you
Like,
don't feel great about having been in that place, right? But you're like,
but I don't care about talking about it. Like, it doesn't
yeah,
bother me to talk about it. In fact, I like talking about it more, not as like a pity case, but more just like, hey, this is who I am. This is part of my identity. Whether you like it or not, like, this is just who I am. This is what I've been through, and I'm not afraid to talk about it.
I like
And
that.
neither should anybody that's been through something like this, because I feel like it's such a taboo thing,
Yeah.
suicide, and like you said, Alex, like nobody talks about it, or like not
Yeah.
that nobody talks about it, but more people are talking about it now, which is great, and I feel like it's definitely coming full circle, but it still needs to be talked about more.
I agree.
It needs to be normalized. Like, this is a thing that not everyone, but like a lot of people go through.
I think everyone thinks about it. I think people are very like hush hush about it, but I think everyone's like thought about, at least in a hypothetical situation, like,
Or
or
like
if you're
just challenging
feeling,
their mortality.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Some people do
Everyone
like
has a fucking,
crazy things on purpose,
you
but
know,
yeah,
existential crisis where they're like, oh, what if I just died?
yeah, yeah,
Like, I
exactly.
think as humans, it's kind of weirdly ingrained in us to think about that. But yeah, for the people that obviously get pushed to the brink of that thought coming in, like you said, how your thought came in with the situation you were living in at home, and being like, well, what if I just wasn't here?
Yeah.
Like, you got pushed to the point where like you didn't want to be in the place that you were anymore, and like that's a hard place to be in. Anyways, I just want to talk about that because I just feel like it's not talked about enough, and it's yeah, it's just a weird stigma over the years that it got, and it's like hush hush, like you said. It's just, but I just want to break that wall down and be like, no, like, we can talk about it. Like, the world isn't black and white. It's full in color, and like, this is one of the colors.
And people who seem fine now, we're not always fine, is the other thing, right? Like, you
Absolutely,
have a
yeah.
lot going for you. I have a lot going for me. It doesn't mean nothing's ever happened to me. Oftentimes, I find that people I meet that are like crazy successful or who are really positive people are like, it's because they've been through tragedy and they've tried to find some other way of impacting the world versus just like being sad, which is not to say that you can't be sad about things that have happened to you, but
No,
it's really like everyone has something that's happened to them. And so I love that you want to normalize this and talk about it more and like get people talking about those experiences, because it's also like locking away a part of your identity, like you were saying, to not let people know about these things. And you're sort of robbing the people who care about you of an opportunity to like get to know you better and to be there for you and to like
yeah,
accept all the parts of you.
on a whole nother level that they wouldn't have normally got to,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And the thing I find about doing this podcast, and like, I don't want to say joy, but like, what comforts me in doing this and why I continue to do it, and I'll keep doing it for as long as I want to do it, it's just the stories that I get out of this from people that come on and share their story. And it
Yeah.
goes back to the point that you made, like, they could seem fine now, but then
Yeah.
I have these people on the podcast, like a couple of guests ago, Nicole, her and I did a song together, and like, you know, we had a Zoom chat where we talked briefly about our lives and stuff, and I got to know her a bit more there. But I had her on the podcast, and she talked about all these things that I would never have guessed because she's just a happy-go-lucky person.
Yeah.
You know, and like you find all this stuff, it's like, wow, you lived through all that stuff, and look at you now. But like I
Yeah.
wouldn't have known any of that if it wasn't for this podcast, or it wasn't for us having this conversation. You know, like you
Exactly.
and I obviously know each other pretty well, so like we know a lot of each other's history. But it's still good that like if someone in your life listens to this podcast and didn't know any of these things about you, maybe
Yeah,
they can
and you wouldn't
discover
know it
this.
from like my LinkedIn profile, or like for other people like their Instagram, whatever. Like you have
Yeah, or from a
to
Facebook page or whatever, right?
ask
Like,
each other these questions to really know the answers for sure.
yeah, exactly. So let's jump into the happy segment.
Yes.
Since we've kind of talked about like the past that you've had with your mental health and where it's been in those years,
Yeah.
and like you coming out of that toxic relationship and dealing with your anxiety and your internalized pressure and all that stuff you were going
Yeah.
through, and now look at you now, obviously, like you've come so far since then. I mean, like, I'm not saying you don't have your challenges still, like we all do.
Yeah.
Especially the last year that we've been fucking living through.
I've come a long way. I'll say it.
But you have, though, and
Yeah.
I've seen it, you know, as your friend on the sidelines. You know, like I've been watching you as the quarterback, just throwing these passes. You know what I mean?
Quarterback
I've
my life.
never used that analogy ever, but whatever.
It's like you're not really a sports guy. That's okay.
So welcome to the rainbow segment.
Right
This is
on.
a segment where we get into the more positive side of things, coming out of the dark into the light.
Okay.
So, Alex, are there any positive things that you discovered or still finding out about yourself in terms of your mental health?
Like things that I like about myself, or just things that I've like sort of learned that I can like cope with, or
And any way you want to interpret the question, I would say maybe start from where we left off in the negatives, where it's like
yeah.
you got out of that toxic relationship, you rediscovered yourself. Like, so take us from like that point and like, how did you get through that? What coping mechanisms did you use? All that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
For sure. I think at the time I just like embroiled myself completely, like back into having a big circle of friends, like back into hanging out with people regularly in the real world, back into like going to family functions and things like that, and just really trying to surround myself with people who were like ringing all the bells and trying to wake me up during that year and saying like you should not be with this person in this situation. I had like a lot of apologizing to do on top
Right.
of that, because I'd kind of been an asshole to everybody for that year. um, but basically after that I just tried to like get my friends back, get my like life back on track in a lot of different ways. I'd been like considering like moving to the States with this guy and like going to university there, so I had to like apply to a bunch of universities in Canada and like change my whole like life plan there. I was just like off the deep end
Right.
with that person. And so it was just like a lot of uh, I'm gonna give up the friends that like were not there for me during this time, and like give up the the hope that they're gonna come back to me at some point, because they're not, and they didn't. And then just try to like ingratiate myself with the people that were there for me and cared about me. And it's and it's like I still feel like I'm finding my own voice as an adult, and really opening myself up to the things that I think and want to do and share with the world. But from that point it's been a lot easier and it's been a lot better. And I've still had like bumps in the road, obviously. Like I pursued therapy again when I was in university, and then again a couple of years ago, and then again this year.
It's good
But
though.
now it is good, and I feel like I have more of the resources now. Like I know where to get help, and I know how to help myself, and I know better like what my triggers are, and what constitutes like a sketchy person out in the world. Like I'm much better at picking up on those red flags now than I used to be.
That's great. So it sounds like you just like, I mean, I think just time and experience helps a lot too.
Yeah, it
That's what
does.
it sounds like. And then a lot of like educating yourself.
And also like wanting yourself to get better is the other thing. Like you
Yeah.
can, it's very easy to like stay locked in a pattern, but to
Mm-hmm.
actively want to change and to try to get better, and then to work really hard at changing who you are and those bad habits, like it's very hard. I found like obviously during that year it's like very easy to lock yourself away and not talk to people if that's what you want to do, and like basically isolate yourself. It's a lot harder to put yourself out there and to try to make connections with people, and to try to you know be maybe not afraid, but like
Yeah.
courageous, I guess, in living your life. And so I'm trying to be more open about that and about who I am. But it definitely, like, you definitely have to want to get better.
Yeah, it goes back to PMA, positive mental attitude,
Yeah.
which is
PMA.
circling around a lot of the mental health community right now. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I haven't
Positive
really.
mental attitude. Yeah, okay. So it's like this it's been around for like the last 2 years, I think, but it's like I've noticed it a bit more in the mental health community. PMA, like it's just a movement that's happening. Positive mental attitude. It's just like, yeah, it's like basically you're just talking about like getting yourself into that mindset of wanting to get, and it's very difficult.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Speaking to someone that, you know, tries to on a regular basis implement that into my life, positive mental attitude, it's not something you just do overnight. It takes time and practice, and you have to be willing to stick with it,
Yeah.
and the results will show if you stick with it and you keep just trying to get yourself in a better mindset. Like, I want to get better, I want to do these things. Okay, so how do you do these things? You know, just break it down step by step, and it's, you know, it just takes time and practice.
Exactly. It's like it's not this easy, or it's not this simple, I should say, but it's almost like brushing your teeth, just in the sense that you have to practice it and you have to do it every day. Like, brushing your teeth once doesn't clean your teeth. Like, you have to do it consistently, right? And so it's like a habit that you have to build of like not being down on yourself and not like being mad at yourself every day, and like finding ways to improve your life and improve your mental state.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of, yeah, that's a great point. Like, I could have said it better myself, but if I could add anything, it'd just be like, yeah, it's like a hobby. You got to make it a hobby for
Yeah.
yourself, like a positive hobby rather than a negative hobby.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that, yeah, it is definitely like there's like it's patterns that you have to break in yourself too, right? Like long-standing like things you might have thought about yourself, or the ways that you talk to yourself in your head. It's like it can be very negative and very easy to sort of make it a habit.
Right. I mean, so one of my last questions here, I feel like we've already answered this question, but if there's any other ways that you could think of, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
But Alex, have you found any constructive ways or solutions in dealing with your mental health over the
Meditate,
years?
meditate,
There you go.
meditate,
See,
meditate.
that's a great one.
Yeah, I love meditation. Like, do you know that expression, like, no one likes writing a book, or like no one likes running, but everyone likes having gone for a run?
Yeah, the runner's high.
Yeah, exactly. It's like no one wants to go for a run,
No
but
one
then like
enjoys the act
after
of doing the
you
run.
go for a run, then you feel great. That's how I feel about meditating. It's like I always sort of fight myself, and it's like, oh, do I really, like, it's just 10 minutes, like it's not a big deal, but it's also like I'm just being lazy. But then when I do it, I'm like, oh, I'm just like calm, and all the all the random thoughts of like I have to do all these things later today, it just sort of like melts away, and then you just think about being uh just an object in space, really, that's like disassociated from
Yeah,
thoughts, and it's just so lovely.
it's like centering yourself in the universe.
Yeah,
It's
it's
on a
like,
grand scale, but like just centering yourself in your own world, in your own
yeah,
bubble.
I'm not my anger, I'm not my happiness, I'm not my, anxiety. I'm just a thing in space that just exists in this moment, and I can put all those things away because those things aren't me. They just occur naturally because of consciousness, and that makes me feel a lot better.
That's great. So you found meditation is a good way for you to help cope with the anxiety and the stress that you deal with, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it helps me to not be so anxious about like my work, and then also just about sort of like the buildup of like tasks in life, like like I have to update my health card, like whatever, all things like that just can build up. And
All like the
so
medial stuff.
yeah, exactly, like the administration of my life. It's easy to get stressed out. Like, I obviously, like, I still have a lot of anxiety that I deal with on the day to day. Like, it's not gone. It's just better. I'm better at managing it than I was. And so just
Right.
in dealing with those things, like having a planner and like a place to put the stuff on a list, like you were talking about before we started, like it's
Mm-hmm.
very helpful for me. But then also just making sure that I'm like making a note to like meditate at least once a day.
That's great, man. It's so good to hear that you can implement that into your life and that it's working for you.
Yeah, I've been
Because
doing it since January, actually, 10 minutes a day.
that's great.
Yeah.
And you find it's really helping you, eh?
It makes a big difference if you practice every day. I think, like, if I take
Yes.
a day off here and there, then I notice it, and like my head gets noisier. But when I come back to it, and you can practice it regularly, you get better at it. Like, it's a skill like anything else.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about, you know, before this. We're like the positive mental attitude. Like it takes
Yeah,
work. You gotta keep up with it if you want results. But
exactly.
then
And
if you
then
do keep up with
yeah,
it, you'll see the results, right? And it
and
makes a
then
big difference.
therapy. I
And
can't say enough
yes,
good things about therapy.
yes, my goodness. Those are the two big ones that come up a lot in this podcast. I've
Yeah.
noticed over like you're the eighth episode now. And yeah, a big theme obviously is therapy. And like I'm obviously a huge advocate. I see a therapist regularly too. That's huge. I mean, like it's
Okay, well, I'll throw one off the wall then.
no,
Like,
no, I'm
no, it's okay. We'll
not
make it more
discrediting your
interesting.
thing.
It's
But
all
yeah,
good.
if you have something
Meditation and
else,
therapy are so blasé. Let's talk about something more interesting.
blase. No, they're great. They're
Having
great. I mean, that there's a reason why they're the two most talked about is because
no,
they
it's all
work.
good. We'll do something more racy. I hear where you're coming
If you
from.
think of something
Having
else
regular
that's
sex is super important for mental health, and I'm
hey,
not
there you
afraid to
go.
say it. It's super important. Like, if you have someone, if you're lucky enough to have someone, like, sex is a need. I'm just gonna throw it out there. It's like a need that people want to fulfill, and it's just like it just helps you clear your brain sometimes, and it's just wonderful for that reason.
Well, it's a good dopamine burst too.
Yeah, oxytocin as well. You feel like connected to the person that you're
And
with. That was a
serotonin
hug. I'm
too,
giving
right?
someone a hug. That's what that pantomime was. But yeah,
That's
like
a good
that,
one.
like eating regularly, like sleeping right. I think when I was feeling super depressed, my sleep schedule was just like bonkers. Like I would just stay up until like 5 in the morning, sleep until 2 in the afternoon. I would
Yep.
do that like constantly, and I think that's pretty like regular for people
Me currently.
experiencing. Yeah, exactly. Developers everywhere. No, but having like a regular sleep cycle is super important for mental health as well. Like your mood just is not, you're not, I didn't feel like I was myself when I was sleeping like that. It's just be nice, being nice to yourself, being kind, like not treating yourself like a,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, like a shift worker in your sleep cycle. Like it's important. It's better to get regular sleep, even if the hours are like weird, than it is to do like 10 hours one night and then 4 hours the next night and then like 7 hours the next night. It's like, it's so
That'll
much better.
screw up your system, man.
Yeah, it's not good for anything.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And I want to add in there too, since we're talking about all these good coping mechanisms and solutions to help mental health. I found, I don't want to say recently, because I've kind of always been doing it, but like I don't think I ever took it seriously until about last year when this COVID stuff started happening. Just how important exercise is.
Yeah,
In
100%.
accordance to mental health,
Oh
because
yeah.
and it's I guess you touched upon it with the running stuff and like how you have that runner's high, and like nobody wants to do the running, but like afterwards that feeling is great. And it's like if you can push past the burden of working out or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
it's definitely worth it, because that feeling you get after a good workout or a good run, or I've been rollerblading a lot.
I'm so jealous of you.
I'm like a huge
There's
rollerblade nerd.
nothing I'm worse at in the world than rollerblading. I promise you.
Oh, well, I mean, we made a promise to like come over to my house at the beginning of the podcast.
Don't
So
make me rollerblade.
you're coming over and I'm going to teach you how to rollerblade.
Okay. Every anxiety I've ever had will come out in that moment, I promise.
We'll work through it. We'll work through it.
Yeah, we'll work through it.
We'll go for rollerblade and then we'll meditate.
Oh, I'm so bad
and it'll
at
be fine.
rollerblading. I'm so bad at rollerblading. No, I'm glad you like
It's not
it
for
though. It's like
everybody,
it's a great workout. Like,
oh, it's amazing. Like
Yeah.
my legs today, can't feel them.
oh,
I mean,
cool. Okay,
the
good.
camera's up here, obviously, so
Yeah.
you can just see my beautiful face, but my legs are very sore.
There's just a puddle underneath your desk where your legs
I don't
used
have
to be.
legs right now. I took them off and
You
they're in a
took them-
cryogenic freezer.
Yeah, trying to recover.
But no, like it's been really helpful, and just to get outside too, and
Yeah.
breathe some fresh air and get that vitamin D from the sun. Like it's so like I don't know, not really talked about a lot,
Yeah.
or like it's just kind of like
People have like put it to the side.
a Passover
Yeah.
thought that no one really
Yeah.
takes seriously. Like how important it is just to go outside and get some sun and some fresh
Yeah.
air.
No,
And how
absolutely.
much, especially in the year that we've had being trapped inside, how
Yeah.
important it is to get outside and get some fresh air and some sunlight. Like
Do
it
you
does
know?
wonders.
Do you know the band Black Flag? Like Henry Rollins, the lead singer of Black
Yes,
Flag,
yes.
specifically. He's got this really good piece about like why he lifts weights, and he's someone who's also dealt with like a lot of depression and like thoughts about suicide and things like that.
Right.
And he was talking about how going to the gym and like lifting heavy specifically can be good for his anxiety, because no matter what, when you go to the gym, like 50 pounds is 50 pounds. And when you go and you lift it, like you can either do it or you can't. And it's just like a very simple moment in your day where everything's very clear. There's no ambiguity. It's like you can either pick this weight up and put it down, or like you can go home and sit on your couch. And like those are the only real options. Like you can either do it or not, and you can't cheat the work. Like you've either done it or you haven't.
Right.
And it's just like a great, I think, like, I don't know, success story, because obviously he's super fit and he's been super fit for a really long time, but it's all a part of like maintaining his mental health as well.
Yeah,
Which is
that's
really
huge.
interesting.
That's a really good point you brought up there. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that little tidbit of information. I agree with it 100% because I feel the same way when I'm rollerblading. Like it's very linear.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice. Like I usually have music on when I'm out rollerblading, so I'm kind of just focused on the music and like just going wherever I'm going, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it is kind of a nice moment. Like you said, how he picks up the weight. It's like it's just you either pick it up, you don't pick it up, and like you pick it up, you do your thing, and then you get that nice feeling afterwards, and you roll with it.
And then you've done it,
right?
yeah. And
then,
now
like
over.
it's just like it's such a linear thing to do, but it's so helpful in the long run if you continuously do it over and over again, right? And Absolutely. I feel the same about rollerblading. I just get out there and rollerblade, listen to music, and it's just like everything, for the most part, tunes out. I try my best to like tune everything out and just listen to music and just focus on my rollerblade, and I, don't hit a bump and die.
Hit a pothole and knock out all your teeth.
I would try not to do that.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, one last funny story before we get to the last little bit here. I've taken up electric longboarding. I don't know if you've ever seen an electric longboard. They were all
Is it just like a motor on the back, basically?
It's just a longboard with a motor, yeah.
Okay.
It's just like this like it looks like a timing belt basically.
Okay.
But, like it has like little notches in it, and the back wheels have like gears on them, and it just pulls it. So the motor just it powers the bands, and it pulls the wheels forward.
How do you stop?
So it's all remote control.
Oh.
So you have a remote control in your hand that powers like gas, stop, like the brake, and like that. Yeah. So I've donated by Kirk, by the way.
Kirk.
So, shout out to Kirk if you're listening to the podcast. Thank you so much for the board, buddy.
Kirk, man, that photo that he took of us at the bar is on my fridge.
Oh yeah, that was a great photo. When we
performed at H Bar, was it H Bar?
Yeah, I think can you send that to me and I'll make that the cover for this episode.
Oh my god,
I think that'd be cool.
Absolutely. I think it was on his Instagram, I think, but
I'll probably slash it off there.
Yeah, if I take a photo, it'll just be super potato-y because it'll be like a photo of an Instagram post.
Of a photo. Oh man, but yeah. So, anyways, I've been taking that up. I mean, I got it last summer, and I've been doing a lot of that. I switch back and forth between that and rollerblading, but I feel it's like very dangerous, this electric longboard. So I found out.
Oh no, what happened?
So I was out for a ride last summer. This is like maybe the first month I had the board.
Okay.
And I got into 2 accidents within a week.
Oh my god.
First accident, I was driving down this road, and it's like a really ritzy area. Like there's like mansions on either side, right? It's down by the lake.
Okay.
And there was a car parked on the side of the road next to this guy's driveway, and I'm zipping by, right?
Oh no.
And this board can go up to 40 kilometers an hour. Like it's crazy. I wasn't going that fast, but it can go that fast.
Yeah.
I think I was probably going like 25. And I'm going down the street, right? And this guy has a long driveway up from his mansion to the road, and the car is parked right in front of where he needs to look. And I'm zipping by, and I don't think he doesn't see me. And he backs the car up.
No.
And I go, oh my God. And I swerve, but I'm too late. And I jumped off the board.
Oh my God.
And his wheel hit the back of the board and spun the board out, and I land on the gravel.
Oh my God.
And I get up because I did like a roll, right?
Yeah.
I had time to like jump and roll. So I got a couple of cuts and scrapes. So I was fine. I got up.
Oh, that could have been so much worse.
He was a really nice guy. He got out of the car and he was like, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry I didn't see you. Like, are you okay?" Like, and I'm like, "Dude, it's fine." He's like, "Is your board okay? I'll buy you a new board." Like, he was very, very nice about it. And I was like, "No, it's all good, dude. I'm fine." And I just went off. I was just more embarrassed than anything. That I wiped out because there was a bunch of people around too. But like, that one was fine. The one that really pissed me off was I was boarding down this. It's the Humber Bay Trail, just behind Humber College, the Lakeshore campus.
The Lakeshore, yeah.
And they have that nice trail back there with all the nice trees and the lake view. And I was going down there, and this is like maybe 4 or 5 days after that car incident. So I'm hesitant now, right? I'm like, looking, I'm
Your
like
nervous system's all like
scanning, and I'm like, and I'm not going as fast as I used to. And so I'm on the path, and I'm coming up to this bend in the path, right? And it had just rained the day before, so there was a big puddle on the path.
Skateboarding on your
But
electric
I was
longboard
on
frame.
my side
Okay.
of the path, right? Because logically, it acts like a road. The
Yeah.
bike's going this way, and you go that way, right?
Yeah.
So I'm on my side of the path, and I'm going, and I'm not going super fast. I'm going like decently fast, but not like really fast. It's a pedestrian path.
Yeah.
So I come to the bend, and I'm coming around the corner, and there's two bicyclists, like those speed bicyclists that were like the
they're all
one piece
decked out.
thing, and like the speed bikes, like they're ripping. And rather than going around the puddle on the grass, or going just through the puddle and just sucking it up and going through the puddle, they tried to swerve into my lane to avoid the puddle. And they don't see me in time. I don't see them in time. And now we're both coming like chicken at each other at this bend.
Oh my God.
The only thing I couldn't brake in time, or else I would have flown forward.
Yeah.
So I just jumped.
Again with the jump.
I didn't know. It was fight or flight moment. I was like, I just gotta jump. So
Eject.
I just abort. And I just jumped off to try to avoid hitting him. Right. Yeah. And I jumped too late, and I shouldered him right in the face.
Oh my God.
And he like obliterated me, and I went flying into a ditch. His bike went over top of his head, and he went over to the other ditch, and his buddy behind him hit him and then fell over into the puddle.
Oh my God.
It was like a crash on the 401. It was nuts.
Jesus.
And then, I think I blacked out for a few seconds, and I wake up, and I'm in the ditch, and my board is in the forest. Because I guess my hand was still on the gas, and it went.
Oh my God. Well, yeah.
I found it. So I ran off, got my board, came back to check on them to see if they were okay, right? But my first concern was like, if they're okay. Like, where's my board? Are they okay?
Yeah, I was going to say, your first concern was, where's my board?
Where's my board, bro? Got my board, came back. I was like, are you guys okay? Like, are you all right? And his friend, not even him, his friend is screaming at me. Like, what the hell are you doing, you fucking idiot? Like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what do you mean? You were on my side of the path.
Yeah.
I was going the way I'm supposed to go. You ran into me. I tried to jump away from you guys.
Yeah.
How are you bitching at me? Anyways, that's a whole fucking thing. But like,
that guy sucks.
But yeah, I didn't even know what the point of the story was. It's just something funny to say. But yeah.
No, exercise is normally good, but sometimes can be dangerous, obviously.
But sometimes dangerous. So if you have an electric
longboard, the story is don't cycle. No, I'm just kidding.
If you have a puddle in the middle of your path, just go through it.
Yeah.
Or go around it the other way. Don't go into oncoming traffic.
Yeah, don't go into an oncoming lane.
Especially a bend that you can't see the other corner. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what if it was a pedestrian? What if it was a person walking? I thought about that when I got home. I was like, what if I was just walking?
Yeah, they would
have on my board.
Gotten bodied, obviously.
Or what if it was like because like not too far away? I want to say like maybe 30 feet, 40 feet behind me, where it was an elderly couple. Like, what? Yeah. Anyways, and they have the nerve to bark at me about it.
Yeah, it's I think people's like adrenaline runs super high in those situations, and they start yelling just because like they don't know what else to do. I don't know. Once again, everyone should get therapy at some point in their life because you're better able to handle your emotions in high pressure situations like that.
Thank you, Alex. That was a good way to tie in the theme of the podcast to what I just said. Thank you. Yeah.
No worries.
If you hit a person on a path,
don't scream at them.
And you start screaming at them, and it was your fault.
Yeah.
Maybe you should see some therapy.
Yeah. I'm glad everyone was okay.
Oh man, that's
at least
great.
Physically.
That's great. Well, Alex, any final thoughts or feelings that you want to express to the listeners? Could be a message of hope. Any advice for people dealing with similar issues as yourself, like the anxiety or the toxic relationship or divorce or any of that stuff? Like, just any final thoughts you want to say to the listeners listening to this episode?
Yeah, absolutely. I personally have been able to take a lot of the things that happened to me and spin it into being able to help other people. I don't think everyone does that, but I think it's important to know that there's always opportunities to get help if you're in those situations, if you're willing to accept it. It's not that everyone has to change their situation, but in my work with victim services in particular, and even doing some of the support for the company I work for now, On Call Health, I have been able to speak to a lot of people and like express patience and express like kindness and just be more supportive because of some of the things that I've been through. And I think that it's really valuable to talk about these things because a lot of people can relate, and it might be people that you're not always expecting. And people who need to open up might not always know where to go. And so with victim services in particular, if I can just tell a really quick story, there was an older man who called in, and like the vast majority of the people who call in are women, because once again, it's like a lot of domestic violence. Not that it doesn't happen to men, but women are much more likely to report it. And so it was uncommon for me to get, a call on the crisis line from an older man. And so I was talking to him, and he basically was looking for grief counseling because his daughter had overdosed on fentanyl by accident 4 days earlier. And he had called in looking for support from us, but really, like, what do you say to someone in that situation? Like, all I could do is just hear him out and try to give him opportunities to look for support in the future. But even if you're just listening to what people are going through, I think that can be a big help without, passing judgment, or like just being there for them and listening to what they have to say can really be enough in a lot of situations. And then just trying to find the courage to ask for help if you're in those positions, I think is one of the most important things you can do.
Wow, that's very well said, Alex. That's beautiful. I couldn't agree more. That's what a good note to go out on. Well, I just got to say, Alex, thank you so much for sharing your story today on the podcast. I feel like I learned a little bit more about you that I didn't know before. And I hope the listeners listening can get something out of this, or just listening. If they just want to listen in, like, that's all I could hope for.
Absolutely. This is great. Thank you, TJ.
Absolutely. Just before we end, is there anything going on in your life that you want to shout out? I mean, I guess you kind of did with your last thought there, but
yeah, I mean,
any plugs you want to
On-Call Health is awesome. The company I work for, they're an amazing platform that also helps people activate mental health programs online, and we have like a lot going on in that space. But then also, it's important to get people connected and online for healthcare, and it's just going to become more and more important. So I think like just helping each other try to stay connected online and trying to help wake people up to what's available in terms of services is so critical and so important. And there's just like so many people trying to make a difference in the healthcare space, and so just pushing people to make healthcare more accessible wherever possible, I think is so important. Funding for mental health initiatives obviously is a big part of that, but also just like making sure there's accessible care for people online.
There you have it.
My friend TJ has a new album coming out, I think. Give that a listen.
Watch out.
This episode also is not sponsored by Chronicle Brewery.
But if you're listening to Chronicle Brewery and you want to sponsor a future episode,
throw the dollar bills.
Hit me up in the DMs at a Mental Break Podcast on Instagram. Mental Break.
I mean, yeah.
Alex, if a listener wants to reach out to you, is there some platform that you would like them to reach out to you on?
Oh, yeah. My account on Instagram is basically dead, but you can hit me up on LinkedIn. My name is Alexandra Latter, Latter. It's probably a place where I'm most easily accessible now, but I'm around.
Okay, well, hit Alex up on LinkedIn.
Hit me up on LinkedIn if you just want to talk.
All right, Alex. Well, thank you so much again for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for feeling safe and comfortable in this space and talking about these things. And I hope that the listeners can take away whatever they need to take away from this.
Thank you, TJ. This is super important. I'm glad that you're doing this. It's a great podcast.
Thank you so much. I try.
This is great. I heard Mikey shaking off in the background, by the way.
Yes, my dog Mikey, for those that can't see him. I mean, they can't see him in the video, but like our audio version. Yeah, he's down here. He's vibing.
He's vibing.
Well, Alex, thank you again so much for being on. Really appreciate it. Guys, if you like the podcast, please give it a review on Spotify or wherever you listen to Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. Give it a follow, give it a like, all that good stuff. If you have any inquiries or any questions about all, like, I'm on Instagram at a mental break podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode. Anything else you want to say, Alex?
Life is wonderful. Life is worth living. And so.
And Undead Beats are coming back.
Undead Beats are coming back. Oh my God. Stay tuned.
Watch out. 2022.
We'll put it off another year.
Love you guys. Drink some water. Wear your
Yes.
mask. Get vaccinated. All that good stuff. Hugs, kisses. Thank you again, Alex. Love you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.